Ordinarily, I spend my day reviewing headphones like these ones, big boy headphones that are, all about sound quality. They're wired, they're open back, and they're not particularly convenient. Products like these, the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro, and other similar devices are the kind of thing that's a lot more popular. And so the question that's always on my mind when I get one of these in to evaluate, this was sent over as a demo unit from Samsung, so big thanks to them for sending it along. Whenever we get a chance to evaluate these, the question on my mind, and I think many other headphone reviewers, is like, well, how close does it actually get to the sound quality of some more sound-oriented devices out there? I never really expect them to. I really never do, and I don't think we should. But it's one of those things where it's like, am I willing to not be audiophile to the same degree when I'm using portable devices like these and sort of, suffer the consequences of less ideal sound quality? All right, so the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro is what we're going to be taking a look at in this video, and I just want to let you guys know that my comparison point here is going to be with the Pixel Buds Pro. Everything is Pro. I want something to come out that's like the Samsung Galaxy Buds Amateur. There are also other ones worth considering. There's the Sony WF-1000 XM4, and of course the very popular and well-known Apple AirPods Pro. So as we get going here, I'm going to put the price of these up on the screen here so you can take a look and see how they compare in price to some of these other models. In general, this is a consumer-oriented device, if I haven't made that clear, right? So this is the case. Of course, we went with the purple one, to my sadness. Yeah, when you open it up, it's basically your standard fare. I will note, though, the Pixel Buds Pro case is a little bit sturdier feeling. Again, this is going to be mostly a sound-focused thing. I don't really care too much about this stuff. When I put it in, it immediately goes bing, and then there's ANC on. And actually, I should tell you a story here because I got these before they're released, and this is like one of the few things that I've actually gotten before release. And I tried pairing them with my phone, which is not a Samsung phone. This is a OnePlus 7T, and I actually had such a hard time pairing it with my phone. Eventually, I did get it to work, but it also, the app wasn't able to recognize these when I downloaded it. None of the features were actually working when I initially paired it with my phone, and so I went out and just bought a new phone. I bought a Samsung phone with my own money. For this video. Is this something I would have bought anyways? Maybe. Okay, probably. So the first thing I did when I got this phone was I paired the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro, and immediately after pairing, it just prompted me with all the easiest ways to connect it that I could imagine. So that's something to keep in mind, is that if you don't have a Samsung phone, you may have some issues. And one other thing is that when using a non-Samsung phone, you only get AAC and SBC for the codecs, whereas with the Samsung one, I think you get their own, codec system. So it's almost to the point where if you don't own a Samsung phone, I almost don't think that this makes sense to do for the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro. I'm just going to kind of take you guys through the measurements that I've done of this, the measurements done with the Samsung phone. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a codec issue or anything like that that made it so that the measured results were different depending on the device that you're using. One thing to note here as I go through the measurements, when I was actually taking the measurement, I had to actually spoof the sensor on the earbud to make sure that it was actually simulating what it would be like when worn, because there is a different result when you don't spoof the sensor. That was the first thing I noticed. So if you see some other measurements that kind of don't match in other areas, that might be why. So diving into the graphs here, right now I'm showing you guys the frequency response of the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro relative to the Harman 2019 in-ear headphone target. The Samsung, AKG, and Harman, and a couple of other companies, they're all kind of part of the same group that is aiming for the same kind of sound quality. They're sort of the ones who are implementing much of the science that Harman has done. So you can see it's fairly close to the Harman in-ear target, which I think is going to be generally appropriate for a lot of people. However, for me, I am not a big fan of the Harman in-ear target. I love the over-ear target. I think that's great, but the in-ear one for me, no, not for me. Just so you can get a sense of how this sounds to me relative to my reference point, which is based on the TheAudio Oracle. It sounds closer to what it shows here on the graph relative to the TheAudio Oracle. Really don't use this reference point here I'm showing you as a canonical kind of this is how things should be tuned, or this is neutral or anything like that. It's just what I perceive to be neutral, or where the even tonal balance falls for me. So generally for me, the bass is very good, actually. That's my favorite part about this IEM, is that the bass is strong, prominent. It's an elevated response into the sub bass mostly. And this means that, you know, it doesn't bleed at all into the mids. It's very clean and clear there between the bass and the mid transition point. I think depending on the music that you're listening to, like, it's not as versatile. If the music doesn't fully, you know, token the lowest frequencies there, the lowest tones, it's not going to be as full sounding. But for well-recorded stuff, it absolutely will. So good bass. Let's just leave it at that. The mids, also generally solid here. I don't have any issues with the mids until we get to the upper mids, which is where things start to get a bit shouty for me. They are a little bit glary and forward, especially when it comes to vocals. That's where things are the most fatiguing to my ear. The most kind of like egregious thing for me is actually in the treble. And it's hard to tell here because the graph doesn't really indicate that, because it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with the treble here. But the way that I hear this is that I've described this like online as sounding kind of fuzzy. It's what you get when like you hear the S's, F's, and T's. They're a little bit sharp. They're a little bit forward for the way that I hear them, but it's not overly forward. The problem is that they're not precise. That sort of like indistinct and imprecise kind of presentation for the S's, F's, and T's. Ideally, I'm not sure if you can hear it with this microphone, but ideally you hear that in a very clear and like pinpoint kind of manner. And with these ones, it's kind of like almost like smoothed out to the degree where it like doesn't sound right. Like it just sounds slightly wrong in the treble. I'll put it to you that way. Compared to its competition, the Buds Pro, it is so much better. Like, it is not even remotely close between these two when it comes to sound quality. Okay, the Buds Pro has strong, prominent bass. All right, also doesn't bleed into the mids. Let me just show you, you know, relative to Harman even. Yeah, I mean, it's even more kind of like scooped out in the upper bass. There's the weird feature going on in the mids here. That's not that bad, to be honest. I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad. But it's this. This is the problem, all right? Let me show you again relative to mine. This lower treble madness and then complete treble roll-off makes it sound like everything on the Buds Pro that's a cymbal hit is compressed and dull sounding and still fatiguing at the same time, because these harmonics here, the lower harmonics, are boosted significantly over the harmonics that are above them. So it doesn't have the right shape for sounding clear at all. This is also after the latest firmware update. As of when you guys are seeing this, it's that week. It's the kind of thing like if you listen to like a lot of headphones, if you spend, again, most of your time, most of your waking moments listening to a wide range of headphones and EQing them and just being a super nerd about this, when you hear this, you immediately recognize how wrong that sounds. So I cannot recommend the Buds Pro as of right now. Maybe they do a firmware update or something and change the DSP that's going on in there, and then improve it. Ideally, they do. I mean, I don't know if they will, but hopefully, because it's a great form factor. But between the two, there's no contest. The Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro is far superior. Let me show you relative to the Sony WF-1000 XM4. So this one is more interesting, and the Sony WF-1000 XM4 it's a bit more relaxed in the just overall presentation. Like the treble and upper mids and lower treble is nowhere near as intense on the WF-1000 XM4 on the Sony. The bass, it's a little bit warmer throughout the upper bass and lower mid section, right? The sub bass is actually stronger on the Galaxy Buds, but the Sony has a bit more presence there throughout this, lower mid section. I got to be honest, between the two of them, I kind of prefer the sound of the Sonys. It's that more kind of like chilled out, laid back, smooth kind of sound. Whereas the Samsung is more kind of like, let's grab your attention a little bit more. Let's put more of it in your face. Let's give you a little bit of spice and a little bit of shout. And some people do like that. I personally am more into the Sonys. I'll just put it that way as far as the sound signature is concerned. So that's basically the sound quality of these. We can think of these as basically Harman-ish. And if you're not into Harman for IEMs, well, yeah, too bad. No, then yeah, this probably isn't for you, as it also probably isn't for me. Now let me talk a little bit about the ANC performance here, because this is also where Samsung beats the Buds. I can't really show you the proper way to do this because I don't have a setup here to do proper ANC testing, but I do want to show you an apples to apples comparison of the amount that it attenuated with a full range speaker sweep. So I'll show you guys that now. So the top line here is basically nothing. This is like, imagine this is like just your default sound that's going across. When you are wearing the Buds Pro with ANC turned on, this is your attenuation, all right? And when you are using the Galaxy Buds, this is your attenuation. So basically we're going from, at the top, like nothing in your ears at all. You're getting all the sounds. And then in these cases, you have earbuds in and the ANCs turned on. And you can see that, in both cases, they do attenuate quite a bit, but the Samsungs are better. When walking around outside with these, the active noise canceling was good enough to where, it would sort of drown out the general commotion and roar of crowds and, city. Of course, it was not at all good enough to block out the intermittent sounds. I think that's really what we should expect from wireless noise canceling devices, because, they're not really noise canceling. They're more just noise dulling, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's basically it for the graphs and for the sound quality stuff. In general, this is a decent true wireless active noise canceling device. I can see all the use case benefits, going on here. It's actually very convenient to use this with the Samsung device. And so if you have a Samsung device, I'm going to recommend it, especially if you're looking for something that has got a little bit more sort of a clarity focused kind of presentation for the sound. However, I do still think the Sony WF-1000 XM4 sounds better, or at least more to my taste, because it is a little bit more laid back and not as, sharp and glaring there in the upper mids and lower treble as the Galaxy Buds 2 Pro is. But, the comfort and ergonomic edge definitely, so the form factor edge definitely goes to the Samsung. As far as battery life and all that stuff is concerned, you guys know best what your use cases and where your tolerances are. So I'm just going to sort of let you know. I'll put on the screen here what the, expected battery life is. For each of these, but I haven't had the chance to actually go through all of that yet. So for me, I probably would still stick with the Sony for a true wireless device. Now, the question that I kind of raised at the beginning of this video, how close does a device like this get to the sound quality of, proper headphones, for lack of a better term? The sound quality of, like, let's say wired, sound focused, sound prioritizing devices, in your headphones. And this is where I have to say, not even remotely close. I think you can get a Moondrop Aria, Dunu Titan S, or a Moondrop Kato. Yeah, there's a lot of IEMs that you can get for less money than these that sound significantly better. While these are decent for their tuning and they are going to be pleasant, I think, for most people, it's not something where I can really say you are competing with, some of the budget kings in the wired in-ear headphone space. If you're really focused on sound quality, that's probably what you should do. I would get one of those like portable devices like a Qtelix 5K that makes it not really wireless, but like it's not connected to your phone in any way, right? And then just use, wired in-ear headphones. At this price, you can actually, there's a lot of really, really good ones out there. But of course, these have the active noise canceling and those don't. So decide how important that is to you, I think. For me, it's not that important. So I'm actually going on a trip at some point in the next little bit, and I was considering bringing, active noise canceling headphones, and I'm not going to. So there, that's the end of the video. Bye.